Hello, all my Patreon subscribers. As it was in the days of Noah. That's what Jesus said before his second coming. It would be as it was in the days of Noah. But what do we know about the days of Noah? We don't really know a whole lot. We don't know if they had technology. We don't know how big the population of the earth was. We don't know what the structure of their society was like. There are many things we don't know. But there are some things we do know. And the one thing we know for sure is it was extremely corrupt. That is to say, in the book of Genesis, God gives his reasons for destroying all the life on earth, with the exception of Noah and his family and the animals. In Genesis chapter 6, Verse 5, the scripture reads, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." Is that what it's like today? I think it is. And I think that's the main thrust of what Jesus said in Matthew 24 when he referred to his second coming, that just before he would return, it would be as it was in the days of Noah. We don't need to look too far to see the wickedness on the earth. We can just turn on the television, and it's all there. And one of the most obvious forms of wickedness is perversion, sexual perversion of every kind, and this whole agenda to create the impression of an androgynous ideal human. That is to say that the most perfectly evolved form of man would be neither male nor female, but both. And this is what I think they were doing before the flood. They were practicing this very Luciferian doctrine, which we are seeing today. And that doctrine goes something like this. Now, it comes out of the Kabbalah, it comes out of Luciferianism, comes out of Freemasonry, and many other religions, Hinduism. They all teach this ideal androgynous man. Where do they get that from? They distort the Genesis account of the creation of Adam, and they say Adam was created both male and female, and that God split Adam in two, so to speak, one part male, one part female, two different people. And that the whole idea of man evolving into the perfect being is to bring these two back together. And that's the agenda, the satanic agenda that you'll find on television. You'll find it in the media, the Caitlyn Jenner phenomenon. And you'll see this idea being taught in schools. Children are confused about their gender. You can read article after article where young children think that they are the opposite sex or want to live as though they're the opposite sex. And their parents encourage this, and it's applauded as a great step of courage. This is an ultimate wickedness, and it is a worship of Lucifer. I'm not saying that these people actively or formally go to a satanic temple and bow down before the Baphomet. No, but by endorsing those ideas, what they're doing is endorsing one of the original Luciferian doctrines, and that is of the Baphomet. The Baphomet is one part male, one part female, one person. That's high Luciferianism. Now, I believe that's what was going on before the flood. It's also going on right now. Because what it does is it distorts the idea that God created man in his image. That is, the communicable attributes of God were bestowed upon man. And what Lucifer wants to do is turn man into a form of himself, and that is the Baphomet. When you put your children in front of the television, many times what you're looking at are transgendered people playing the opposite sex. But you don't know it because they transgender some of these people from a very early age. Now, let's look a little bit at the book of Jude. Regarding how things were in the days of Noah, Jude gives us some tips. He talks about the angels that kept not their first estate. That's been interpreted to mean a lot of different things. There's one camp that says this is a reference to angels mating with human beings and creating this hybrid species that became giants. That's possible. Other people will say, well, them not keeping their first estate has something to do with rebelling against God. It could be that as well. But here are some key verses, keeping in mind this Baphomet concept. In verse 7 of Jude, it says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Now this again is in reference to how it would be just before Jesus returns. Are we seeing that kind of corruption in society? Absolutely. This is the reason that God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, because of the vile corruption. He destroyed the earth with the flood because of the corruption. He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because of the corruption. And when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they went into some of these lands, and God told them to go in and destroy everything. Men, women, children, livestock, everything in a particular city. Now, we're not given all the details, but we know God is just, and he would not have commanded that if he didn't have a very good reason. We only have to think about Abraham arguing with God about sparing Sodom and Gomorrah if there was even one righteous man. So we know that when Lot and his family left the city, what was left was just pure filth and corruption. So God did not destroy the righteous or the believers with the vile wicked. No. So that was how it was in the days of Noah. Noah and his family were taken through the flood. They were believers. They were not destroyed. Today, we have a society that is given to every wicked imagination. Anything a person thinks of, they can find a way to do that. And many do. And you can watch it on television. You can watch every form of vile wickedness. Everything you can think of is right there. That's a reflection of society. Are we living in a time that really typifies the days of Noah? Absolutely. When you look into the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22, verse 5, talks about apparel. God says, men should dress as men. If you're a man, don't try and dress to look like a woman. And if you're a woman, don't try to dress so you appear as a man. That is a defiance of how God created men and women to be separate and different, and to have very different roles and different functions. When we turn those roles around, we blaspheme God. Is that going on in society today? Absolutely. And it's pushed and pushed on people to the point where when somebody comes out of the closet, so to speak, it's considered a great act of courage. Or when Bruce Jenner had this sex change, so to speak, to become Caitlyn Jenner, he's plastered on every magazine that you can think of. He's on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He's on every important show. And the world applauds this great person of courage. I tell you, this is not a person of courage. This is a person who is mentally ill. This is a person who is so corrupt and so defiled. Yet society applauds this. Are we in a time that is like the days of Noah? I think we are. Some of the other things we don't know about the days of Noah. For example, we don't know if they had technology. We don't know the extent of that. I think it's safe to say that because genetically they were much closer to the pure strain from Adam and Eve, they were a lot more intelligent than we are. And they probably had technology that we have no idea of. I don't know for sure, I'm speculating, but they were much more intelligent than us. We have been slowly devolving as our genetics become more corrupt and broken up.